Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather on this 13th day of January, Sunday, 2019. Up first on the hazardous weather graphic, we've got wind advisories out for the Alaska Range. That's out until 9 p.m. this evening for southerly winds or east-southeast winds becoming mostly south in some areas, gusting to 55 miles per hour. And again, that's out until 9 p.m. this evening. Then they'll drop off, and we've got a winter storm warning out here for blowing snow, reducing visibilities to less than a quarter mile at times for the Yukon Delta, and that's out until 9 p.m. this evening as well. And otherwise, there's wind chill advisories here over the yellow shaded areas from the lower Yukon River Valley areas over toward the eastern Norton Sound, southern coast of the Seward Peninsula, and eastward in toward Tanana and up into the Koyukuk Valley around Bettles, Huslia, Galena. Those areas, those are out until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And moving up to the north here, we've got wind chill warnings out for tonight through tomorrow until 6 p.m. On Monday here for the entire Arctic coast for winds 30 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts, resulting in wind chill temperatures of -70, and that's out until 3 p.m. Monday afternoon. Otherwise, looking at satellite imagery, you can see bands have been moving northward, weakening. One's already washed out here up over the northern interior, really didn't produce much in the way of any precipitation, but stronger one here coming northward brought about an inch of precipitation to a place like Pedro Bay there near Iliamna Lake, and then precipitation, the rain today for Kodiak Island, and also rain, Seward, Homer, Seldovia reporting rain today up into Passage Canal at Whittier, Portage also carrying rain, and pretty warm temperatures aloft, rising over or rolling over the cold air we've had in place, and so shallow enough now at Bethel with the front just pushing up into that area. They're carrying freezing rain this afternoon, probably a band of freezing rain along and near the main occluded front as it lifts northward. Milder temperatures pushing into the Pribilof Islands. You see that low center spinning up and kind of pulling back to the northwest there. And that pushing the cold air back to the west, and that's plunging down over the western Aleutians. Temperatures in the mid-20s, north winds 50 miles an hour with numerous snow showers, shimmy over to Adak, and then kind of a mixture here coming into Unalaska and Atka Island and Nikolsky, and then becoming more showery here over the Alaska Peninsula with the front pushing up to the north. And this stuff still back to the west. Along the southeast coast, pretty good shot of rain with this south to north flow here over the last 24 hours. Ketchikan picked up 3 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. I guess a drought is over down there. Juneau about an inch, as well as Petersburg. So some pretty significant moisture with this rather stationary north-south oriented band of cloudiness and rainfall. Otherwise, not much in the way of any precipitation here over the eastern northern part, most of it back over the southwest interior. We have the winter storm warnings out, could see 4 to 7 inches accumulation, most of that blowing around. And then the low wind chills up here, temperatures Umiat Airfield this morning down to 52 below zero, 43 below with 10 to 15 mile an hour winds this afternoon. So really low on the wind chills up there, especially along the Arctic coast. And on the chart here is that front pushing northward, and the snow and blowing snow in advance of that now ending over the, or has ended over the Kuskokwim Delta. Lasts a few more hours here over the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island, probably most of the night into the Bering Strait coast, and then snow showers and cold temperatures all the way down to the central western Aleutians. Southerly flow, warmer temperatures, of course rain here for the Fox Islands. Still breezy, even the Alaska Peninsula, but much lighter on the precipitation there. with locally gusty winds maybe to 35, possibly 40 miles an hour. And the front kind of hangs up over Kodiak Island here, so you'll see periods of rain through tonight. Wind's not much of a problem, periods of rain up along the North Gulf Coast, and not much precipitation making it too far inland, mostly hanging up in the Coast Range, and then dry for the Copper River Basin, dry for the Matanuska Valley, probably dry for the Susitna Valley. It won't be until you get over there on the eastern slopes of the Western Alaska Range you'll pick up heavier precipitation. And those winds that gust as high as 60 miles an hour at Sparavon will be dropping off here, and keeping windy conditions. Could still see those gusts 40, 60 miles an hour at Gamble here throughout the night tonight. Of course, pretty windy with wind chill warnings along the Arctic coast and along the Arctic coast. And then periods of rain continue here with this low sliding up today, as I mentioned, the heavier rain that tonight will scatter out into showers. As that system just washes out here, stays off the coast, and the whole thing really weakens. As front weakens as well, chance of rain into, again, mainly along the coast without much getting too far inland. Snow and blowing snow improving up here to the north, especially over St. Lawrence Island. Later tonight, you'll see an increase or a decrease in the winds, and the wind chill warnings out for the Arctic coast, and snow showers advancing eastward slowly with this low pulling up. So lighter precipitation for the Pribilofs, definitely better visibilities and probably ceilings as well, with more showery conditions let up in the wind, swinging around to more southeasterly, and some showers along the Alaska Peninsula. Outlook for Monday, another low pulls northward here. That'll bring more rain and another surge of warm temperatures, so wind won't be too big of a problem. Probably see some gale force winds right in this area from Sitkinak, maybe down to Castle Cape, possibly. Stays pretty breezy here over the southwest interior up into the Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula. Lighter winds, definitely drier. See some clearing here in the central interior areas. Dry all the way down again into the Susitna, Matanuska Valley areas. Rainfall, Turnagain Arm into Passage Canal, Portage Valley, and possibly mostly western Prince William Sound, with dry conditions. Cordova over to Yakutat. Could see some sunshine like you saw today there at Yakutat, and still a chance of showers there over the central and northern southeast coast. Chance of snow up over the Arctic coast, just flurries of very light amounts. Outlook for Tuesday, that low center kicks off to the north, or kicks off to the east, staying to the south. So it won't be driving northward, which would bring a Chinook wind here across southern Alaska. But the associated front, which isn't too strong, brings a chance of rain back up to the North Gulf Coast. Probably rain likely Cordova over to Seward, and partly Port Muller and Seldovia. Kodiak Island, rain late tomorrow night through the morning hours on Tuesday, becoming showery and ending late in the afternoon. Maybe some clearing showing up on the east side of the island, but moisture into Bristol Bay in the form of rain or snow, depending on elevation. Pretty dry here now over the southwest interior. We can still see a pretty good gradient across the interior for rather breezy conditions, especially higher elevations. Delta Junction, for example, probably see some gusty winds continuing mostly out of the east. And winds will increase here along the southeast coast late in the day, with chances of rain also increasing. Low temperatures tonight, mid-20s to, let's call it mid-30s here, south central Alaska, upper 30s Kodiak Island. 30s Alaska Peninsula, low 30s Aleutians, mid-20s way out west, and below zero here for the upper Yukon Valley and the North Slope. And the highs for Monday afternoon staying below zero there, Shakyitsik and Fort Yukon. Brooks Range a little above zero, maybe 10 at Anatuvik, staying below zero for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, but not nearly as far below. Mid-30s for the Pribilofs, lower to mid-30s for the Aleutians, upper 30s, lower 40s for the Panhandle. 30 to 35-ish here for the Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, cooler up the valleys, and in the teens in the Tanana Valley. And for the lows the following morning, 15 to 20 south central Alaska, and falling maybe down a little below zero in the mid-Tanana Valley area to 11 below at Tok. Otherwise, 30s again for the Panhandle, upper 30s Kodiak Island, and 5 to 15 below for the Arctic coast, definitely milder for the North Slope, near zero through the Brooks Range. Highs for Tuesday afternoon, below zero a little for the upper Yukon Valley and the Arctic coast, back into the lower 30s here for southern Alaska to 37 around Homer, lower 40s Kodiak, 30s to lower 40s for the southeast coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to aviation weather, batch IFR up here over the northern Bering Sea. A little bit into the Seward Peninsula there, here over the southwest mountains, and then scattered marginal VFR, scattered VFR, and scattered IFR over the interior. Southeast coast mostly IFR. For tomorrow afternoon, mostly marginal here for the southeast coast with some areas of IFR along the coast and up north, and mostly VFR, Copper River Basin, IFR along and on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Along the south coast, Kenai Peninsula, western Prince William Sound, more IFR here, Alaska Peninsula, and from the southwest mountains of Nunivak Island on up to St. Lawrence Island with, again, kind of mostly VFR in the central interior, mostly marginal for the North Slope, Brooks Range, and the Arctic coast. And for Tuesday morning, IFR still holding here, St. Lawrence Island, down across the Yukon, and to a certain extent, Kuskokwim Delta coast, but not the bay, in across Togiak Bay, Dillingham, back into the Auckland Mountains, and IFR holding on the east side of the western Alaska Range. Pretty good VFR in most areas of the interior with some scattered marginal. And for the southeast coast, VFR south, central, northern areas, pretty marginal for the afternoon. That pulls off the coast here, so becoming mostly VFR for the southeast coast. And not much change over the interior except some varying areas of marginal stuff. Western Copper River Basin, Talkeetnas, improving here on the western Alaska Range, still some marginal low on the eastern slopes. Marginal VFR upper Yukon Valley to Arctic Village. And IFR, Yukon Delta Coast, Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, marginal for the Bering. Some VFR trying to break out around Adak and Atka. Passes, Hanatuvik tomorrow, marginal VFR. But Adigan looks to be mostly VFR for the most part. And Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR with some IFR on the eastern entrances. Again, that same pattern also good for Rainy, marginal VFR with IFR on the eastern entrance. And for Windy, marginal VFR possible on the southern approach, otherwise VFR. And Isabel looking marginal, Mintesta VFR, Portage, or Tanita VFR with possible marginal VFR here in the eastern approach, and Portage, IFR east side, otherwise marginal to possibly IFR. And for Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the northern panhandle here, maybe up to 5 down toward Dixon entrance, otherwise 2,000 feet now up along the North Gulf Coast. Shelikof Strait and south of the Alaska Peninsula, but at the surface, north of the Pribilofs, almost up to St. Matthew Island, and then falling back down south of the area over the western Aleutians here, Shimmy and Attu specifically. Icing, not too much in the way of any significant icing expected tomorrow, but there will be some areas of isolated moderate or just outright light here, like around the Pribilofs and northeast Bristol Bay, Aleutian Range, maybe to Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, on down to about Port Hayden, and possibly some icing left over up in Prince William Sound here, and southeastern Kenai Peninsula, Montague Island. Pretty good in the interior, and a patch up here along the western Arctic coast. Jet stream for tomorrow, upper level ridging here from southwest Canada, actually right up into the eastern central interior, with southerly winds here on the west side of that between trough out here over the Bering Sea. 50 to 70 knots there. The main jet well to the south here, carrying the storminess into California and keeping it actually south of the Aleutians. For the 9,000 foot map, we're seeing southeast flow 30 to as high as 70 knots here, 50 to 70 knots cutting across Bristol Bay, and 35 to 40 up to St. Lawrence Island. Coming back around, northerlies, north-northwest, 30, 35 knots on the west side, lighter over the eastern interior, but all southeasterly right through the state, as well as the southeast coast. And for 3,000 feet, southeast 20 to 25, central south coast of the Panhandle, otherwise 10 to 15, not too strong here over the east side. Up to 35 knots, Cook Inlet, 40 knots, Kodiak, 50 to 65 knots here across the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, and 40 knotters right up in toward Norton Sound, north-northwest, 25 to 30 on the west side of that feature, westerlies 35 for Atka Island. And as far as turbulence goes, look for widespread moderate chop here from eastern Norton Sound right on down to Kodiak Island, northeast Bristol Bay, and the Alaska Peninsula. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And once again, you brought some wonderful satellite pictures to show us and do a little show and tell about. It's just amazing. I can get lost in satellite pictures all day. What did you bring today?
Right. Well, weather satellites, what are they good for? Yeah. Of course, there's the pretty pictures that they bring us. You know, we've got a picture here from April of 2012. Okay. The Sumi NPP satellite, it's what they call a polar orbiter, which means it covers Alaska because we're near the pole. Beautiful image. You can see a storm off of southeast Alaska, the sea ice along the Bering Sea up into the Arctic. A really nice picture, and this is important because it allows a forecaster to see where the storms are, where the ice is, where the clear areas are. You need to know where the weather is now if you're going to forecast it into the future. Exactly. So satellites give us these good pictures. This is called surveillance of the weather. And you know, that same satellite also has another picture from a little more recently, August of 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle bearing down on the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaii doesn't get hit by a whole lot of tropical storms or hurricanes. Sometimes it does. And here's a picture from the same satellite, the Sumi NPP Polar Orbiter. It shows Tropical Storm Iselle approaching the Hawaiian Islands from the southeast. You can see the storm swirling away there, and then there's the Hawaiian Islands. This is a tropical storm, not quite as strong as a hurricane because we don't see the eye wall in there. This is still a serious weather system. And all of this information comes just from that satellite picture. It's so much information, and it's wonderful to look at. You see the beauty and the awe of nature right there depicted in that weather satellite. We call it a polar orbiter because the satellite flies high over the globe. Maybe we could look here at we happen to bring the planet Earth with us. This is our satellite. A polar orbit flies really close to the Earth, maybe 800 kilometers over the Earth, and goes up over the pole and then back down, and then the Earth spins under the satellite as it goes by. That's in contrast to the geostationary birds, which are much further out. And they don't view Alaska quite as well. So we love those polar orbiter satellites here in Alaska.
So when we're a lot closer, we get much better details and imagery and an idea of a better maybe position of what's going on when it's passing right over Alaska or right over Hawaii.
Yes, exactly right. The polar orbiter gives such a good view of places like Alaska. And because it's close to the planet, there's another aspect of satellites in the polar orbit that is helpful for weather forecasting. It's an aspect that's maybe not as immediately obvious as the pretty pictures that we see. And that is the capacity for the satellite to produce what's called a sounding. That is finding the vertical profile of temperature and moisture in the atmosphere. We've all heard of weather balloons. Weather balloons are launched here in Alaska twice a day at a number of airports, everywhere from Barrow to St. Paul Island to Kodiak, Anchorage and Fairbanks, Yakutat, a number of places. Launch these balloons, and we've got a picture of a balloon being launched at an airport, and the balloon goes up. It's pulling a little package, an instrument package with it that reports temperature, pressure, humidity data back, and we use that information to help feed what are called numerical weather prediction models.
The models.
The models, right. It's a mouthful, so we just call it the models. And these computer simulations, these models are computer programs that simulate the motion of the atmosphere. Well, how does a model know what the future will be like? You have to tell the model what things are like now. And you give it all kinds of information, including information from these satellite sounders. Very important. Just how important are they? We have a recent, comparatively recent study that really brings home, and this is Superstorm Sandy. We have a track image here of the track of Hurricane Sandy. It was down in the Caribbean around Cuba, and then it moved north over the ocean, offshore of the eastern seaboard, and then at the last minute, Sandy made what's called the left hook. It turned hard to the left and slammed into New Jersey. Was a major problem for the mid-Atlantic states, a calamity. It fused with another weather system and became known, this is not an official title, but Superstorm Sandy. It was quite the weather event. Well, the modelers, after the event, there's a group of modelers in Europe. They have a very good model, a frustratingly good model if you're the Americans trying to pursue their excellence. They reran their model afterwards in what's called a data denial study, where they kept everything the same. So this is 6 months after Sandy, but they went back, they reran the same model, they fed the model the same initial conditions, that is telling the model, okay, here's where we think Sandy is, down near Cuba in the Caribbean. Everything was the same as it was in the real forecast, except they didn't let the model know.
No satellite data.
No satellite data. So we're going to put that over here, no satellite data for you. The resulting forecast 5 days out, back when the real Sandy was happening and the model had the satellite data, the forecast was pretty good. We've got a graphic here on the left side. We show the forecast of where Sandy would be, and that's the red bullseye on the left. It's just south of where it actually wound up hitting. Not a bad forecast from this computer simulation, 120 hours out. On the right, you see the same model, but it didn't have the satellite data to help it understand things. And the storm is way offshore. It misses. The forecast is more accurate when the model has the satellite data. So that's the idea today we want to convey is weather satellites. They're important because they show us the pictures of where storms are. We see good examples of this. Yeah, the surveillance right now, it's great to look at those pictures. And in addition, behind the scenes, maybe not immediately obvious, but the models have to have that satellite data for them to be good forecasts. And then a meteorologist uses that information to help everyone with the forecast of where the storms will be in the future.
That is fascinating information that we can look at, see where things have been, because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. That's that old adage there. But seeing that satellites are actually helping us move forward in the weather information system is pretty amazing stuff.
You bet.
And if you want to check out Eric's satellite images that he's been talking about, whether that's something from today or last week or even much further back in Alaska history, you can easily do that yourself. Go to www.gina.alaska.edu and you can find those images there. Eric, thanks so much for joining us once again. And again, we will join you hopefully again soon for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, where you'll tell us more really cool information about the satellites over our heads in Alaska. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis looks something like this afternoon. Not a lot of change here. A little closer to St. Matthew Island, but with the south and southeast winds, warmer temperatures coming up, the advance is definitely going to stop here for the areas east of St. Matthew Island, and definitely see some retreat in Bristol Bay as well as Cook Inlet over the next few days. And for the coastal water forecast, not too bad down there on the south coast. East-southeast 10 to 15, seas about 12 feet. East 15 Clarence Strait, north 10 Stevens Passage, north 15 Lynn Canal. East winds 15 knots, 12-foot seas on the north coast. And for Tuesday, east 20 on the north coast, seas still at 12 feet. Southeast 20 with 12-foot seas, south coast. Light winds for Clarence Strait, northeast 20 Stevens Passage, southeast 25 knots, good for a small craft advisory in Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, east winds about 15, 3-foot seas, southeast 20 here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, picking up to 25 knots on the western zone, and southeast 30 for the Barren Islands. Turn easterly and blow right into Kamishak Bay, northeast 25 southern Cook Inlet, lighter winds north of the Forelands. And Tuesday, light northeast breeze up here for northern Cook Inlet, 20 knots south of the Forelands into Kamishak Bay. Same thing for the Barren Islands, and also for the western North Gulf Coast. Small craft advisories here, eastern Gulf Coast, and northeast 15 for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, southeast 35 knots tomorrow. The arrow fell off. East 25 there for Shelikof Strait. And Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southeast 35 knots, gales, as I mentioned earlier, 35 knots here, 22-foot seas, east 35, Bristol Bay, southeast 30 to 35 knots for the peninsula. And the outlook for Tuesday, east 25, the east side of Kodiak there, all the way down to Castle Cape. From Castle Cape to Cape Saratchev, just south at 15, then southeast 20 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, east 25. There in Bristol Bay with 5-foot seas. Western Aleutians, northwest, 30 knots. A little stronger minimum gales here at times, especially on the Bering Sea side of the Adak-Atka marine zones there, with seas up to 22 feet. And gales, westerlies, turn south there on the north side of Unalaska Island, 35 knots. And then for Tuesday, those come down on Alaska Island down to 15 to 20 from the south-southwest, picking up to 30 knots in Nikolsky, northwest 30, Adak and Atka, with those seas still highest on the Bering Sea side of things, 17 feet. Small craft advisories all the way up to Shimia. And for the southwest coast, good gales south of Nunivak Island, 40 knots, 11-foot seas. Gales also for the Pribilof, St. Matthew Island, southeast 30 north of Nunivak Island, easterlies at 25, brisk wind advisories, St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. Those hold, no change through Tuesday in those two areas. East 25 here along the southwest coast, 7-foot seas and open water areas there. South of Nunivak Island, southeast 20 for the Pribilofs, east 25, St. Matthew Island with 12-foot seas. Moving on up to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, 35-knot gales through tomorrow up there. In fact, gales all along the coast there, east 35 central coast, east 35 knots all the way down to Cape Beaufort southward to the Bering Strait. Brisk wind advisories for east winds at 25. And for Tuesday, those come down a little bit here in the west side, 15 to 25 from Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort. Then brisk wind advisories continue for the western central Arctic coast, but increase eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east winds 40, increasing to 45 knots toward demarcation point. And for tonight, conditions improving here across all the southwest interior, and eventually for the southern Seward Peninsula, but winter storm warnings out for a while longer for St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait coast, ending this evening for the Yukon Delta. Wind chill advisory central interior through tonight and through tomorrow. Wind chill warning for the Arctic coast for wind chills of 70 below zero with 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Otherwise, this weakening front bringing low precipitation in. Big change is the milder temperatures associated with it. Scattered showers, Kodiak, southwest interior, Alaska Peninsula. A little stormier out there over the central Aleutians with that 964 millibar low. Scattered showers now for the Panhandle. That'll continue through tomorrow, dry in the central interior for the day Monday. Chance of rain, best chance Kodiak Island, lesser chance up along the North Gulf Coast, western Prince William Sound, and kind of damp here along the coast with southeast winds. Next day, weak front keeps it damp along the coast, dry in the interior, and showery in the Aleutians.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.